Marcus Ellison walked the cracked sidewalk of Boulevard Avenue with the slow, steady pace of a man who had seen too many sunrises that looked the same. The late afternoon light bled gold across the broken windows of the old houses, while the scent of fried okra and hot asphalt filled the air. His lunch sat in a small paper bag from Miss Laverne's kitchen, the only cafe left on the block that still played Coltrane on Sundays. Inside was a turkey sandwich, some sweet potato fries, and a slice of cornbread he'd promised himself he wouldn't eat, but always did. He wore the same worn-out jacket from his Federation days, the emblem faded into near invisibility. The metal tag still clinked softly when he moved. Sergeant Marcus D. Ellison, 3rd Frontier Division, retired. That last word still tasted strange in his mind. Retired from the war, but not from the memories. As he passed the shuttered community center, he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in Atlanta. A soft, chittering sob, almost musical, echoing from the shadows. Marcus stopped. He listened again, heart tightening. It wasn't human. Cautiously, he rounded the corner. Beneath a flickering streetlight sat a small figure, curled up beside a rusted bench. The creature trembled, its skin translucent, light pulsing faintly beneath its surface like breath through glass. 2 large liquid eyes turned toward him, full of fear, confusion, and something achingly familiar. Marcus froze. "Hey there, little one," he said, his voice gentle but unsure. "You lost?" The being made a high-pitched whimper, covering its face with long, thin fingers. Marcus knelt, careful not to move too fast. Up close, the child couldn't have been more than 3 feet tall, with fragile limbs and a faint bluish shimmer that reminded him of dawn over Lake Lanier. He didn't know what protocol said about this kind of thing. Aliens weren't supposed to be wandering around Atlanta, not after the Federation's strict border accords. But looking at that trembling figure, protocol didn't matter. Marcus slowly opened his lunch bag. "You hungry?" he asked. The child tilted its head, uncomprehending. He tore the sandwich in half and held it out. "It's food," he said softly. "You eat it." The alien hesitated, then reached out. Its touch was cool and delicate, almost electric. It sniffed the sandwich, then took a tiny bite. Its luminous chest flickered brighter. Marcus smiled. "That's it. Go ahead. It's yours." As the child ate, a quiet calm settled over the street. Somewhere, a train rumbled distant thunder. Marcus sat beside the bench, hands resting on his knees, watching the creature chew with small, uncertain motions. "Guess we're both just trying to make it through the day," he murmured. The alien looked up, blinking. For a brief moment, Marcus could have sworn it almost smiled. When the sandwich was gone, the child stood, bowed its head slightly and let out a soft hum, a tone that resonated deep in Marcus's chest, like the final note of a hymn. Then, before he could react, the child darted off into the dark, its glowing form slipping between the houses until it vanished entirely. Marcus sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty street. "What in God's name?" he whispered. Then, shaking his head, he chuckled under his breath. "First real conversation I've had in weeks, and it wasn't even with a human." He stood, brushing off his jacket, and turned toward home. The air had shifted, cooler, charged, like a storm brewing miles away. As he walked, he thought about the look in that child's eyes. Not alien, not strange, just scared and hungry. And that he understood better than anyone. Before we dive deeper into Marcus's unforgettable encounter, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove humanity's heart is its greatest weapon. That night's sleep came uneasy. Marcus dreamed of stars, burning bright, pulsing with the same rhythm he'd heard in the child's hum. When he woke before dawn, the air outside was unnaturally still, and through the thin curtains of his living room, a faint, otherworldly glow painted the walls. He stepped to the window, heart thudding. Over the Atlanta skyline, lights moved, silent, deliberate, descending. Something was coming. The morning broke strange and silver. Marcus Ellison stepped out onto his porch, blinking against a light that didn't belong to the sun. The air tasted metallic, and even the cicadas had gone quiet. Across the street, neighbors stood frozen, their faces turned skyward. Hovering above the distant skyline of Atlanta was something vast and silent. It shimmered like heat on asphalt, edges bending the air itself. No engines, no sound, just presence. A ship, suspended in the dawn as if waiting. "Lord, have mercy," whispered Mrs. Jenkins from next door, her robe clutched tight. "That's not one of ours, is it?" Marcus didn't answer. His heartbeat pounded heavy in his ears. He'd seen ships before, human ones, grey and angular, built for war, but this thing moved like a thought made real. The first rays of sun struck the vessel's hull, scattering light into rivers of colour. A low hum rippled through the neighbourhood. Dogs barked, babies cried, and somewhere down the block, someone started recording on their phone. Marcus's old instincts kicked in, observe, assess, act, but he wasn't a soldier anymore. He was just a man with a porch, a garden, and memories that still kept him up some nights. He turned as a voice called from behind. "Marcus!" Aisha Brown jogged up the street, phone in hand, her hair tied back in a scarf of bright red and gold. "You see this? Tell me I ain't crazy." He gave a half smile. "If you're crazy, we all are." Aisha exhaled, shaky but determined. "They said on the feed it's not a Federation ship. They've locked down the airspace from here to Savannah." Marcus looked at the ship again. "Then what's it doing here?" As they watched, beams of soft light drifted down from the vessel, like rain made of glass. People gasped, some prayed aloud, others backed away. A small boy clutched his father's leg, whispering, "Mama, is it the end?" "No, baby," the woman replied, her voice trembling. "It's just something new." Aisha began filming, narrating under her breath. "Atlanta, Georgia, Boulevard Avenue. Something's happening right above us. The whole sky looks like it's breathing." Marcus glanced at her. "You really think it's safe to post that?" She shrugged. "If folks are scared, they need to see truth. You taught me that back at the center, remember?" He chuckled softly. "Didn't think anyone was listening back then." "I was," she said. "Still am." For a moment, the light beams stopped. The sky went still again. The ship hovering directly over Marcus's block now, as if tracking him specifically. His pulse quickened. The humming deepened, vibrating through his chest. "Marcus," Aisha whispered, "it's moving closer." He didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the light, on the strange beauty of it. Part of him felt afraid, the old kind of fear, the one that makes your hands shake before a firefight. But beneath that fear was something else, recognition. Without warning, a column of light shot down from the ship, blindingly bright. It struck the ground just beyond his fence, scattering dust and leaves into a swirling dance. The light pulsed once, then steadied, forming a narrow vertical beam that shimmered like liquid air. Neighbors screamed, running back into their homes. Marcus stood firm. Though his knees trembled, Aisha reached for his arm. "Marcus, we need to go." He shook his head slowly. "No, it came here for a reason." The hum deepened again, almost rhythmic now, and inside that sound Marcus thought he heard something. A faint voice, high and distant, calling his name. He took a single step toward the fence, eyes wide. The world seemed to contract, sound flattening into heartbeat and wind. "Marcus Ellison," the voice whispered again, clearer this time, almost inside his skull. Aisha gasped. "Did you hear that?" Marcus's lips parted, but no words came. He glanced at her, then back to the beam. Whatever this was, it wasn't random. Something, or someone, had come back for him. The hum from the sky grew sharper, vibrating through the pavement like the memory of thunder. Marcus stood by the fence, his pulse sinking with the low rhythm overhead. Aisha stayed a step behind him, torn between awe and fear. Across the street, blinds twitched and doors slammed as people fled inside. The entire neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. "Marcus," Aisha whispered, gripping her phone tighter. "It said your name. Why you?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The voice, that strange, weightless sound, was still echoing in his chest. He took one step forward, boots crunching the gravel. From within the beam of light, a shape began to form. The air rippled like water disturbed by wind, and out of it emerged something small. At first it was only brightness, but then the light thinned and a familiar outline appeared. Marcus's eyes widened. It was the alien child, the same one from the night before. The same translucent skin, the same fragile shimmer. Its eyes glowed faintly blue now, wide and wet with emotion. The small figure stood at the center of the beam, trembling, holding something close to its chest. A murmur swept through the few brave souls still watching from porches and windows. Aisha gasped softly, lowering her phone. "That's a baby," she breathed. "That's a baby alien." Marcus's throat tightened. "Yeah," he said hoarsely. "I know." The child looked straight at him and let out a sound halfway between a cry and a word. Cuss. Aisha's eyes darted to him. "It's speaking." Marcus's hands trembled. "Yeah," he whispered. "It remembers." He walked slowly toward the beam, every instinct telling him not to, every old soldier's reflex screaming to hold position. But compassion, that quiet, heavy force that had once guided him through war zones and refugee camps, overpowered fear. The hum softened as he drew near. The child stepped forward too, its little feet barely touching the ground, light rippling beneath each movement. When Marcus was only a few feet away, it reached out a hand, small glass-like fingers quivering. "It's okay," Marcus said gently. "I'm here." He extended his hand, palm up. The child's touch was cool again, but now it carried a pulse, not mechanical, not digital, but alive. A rush of warmth spread through his skin, and suddenly he felt something deeper. Hunger, confusion, the sting of loneliness. The sensations weren't his own. They belonged to the child. Marcus flinched, breathing hard. "You're scared," he murmured. "You don't have to be." The alien tilted its head, the motion eerily human. Then it reached into the folds of its garment and pulled out something that glowed faintly, a small metal tag. Marcus's breath caught. It was his Federation ID tag, the one he'd lost years ago in the border war. Aisha covered her mouth. "Marcus, that's yours." He stared, frozen. "How did you—" Before he could finish, a sharp whirring filled the air. Federation drones swooped overhead, their red sensors locking onto the scene. A booming voice echoed from a loudspeaker. "This is a restricted contact zone. Civilians, stand down immediately." Aisha's camera trembled in her hand. "Oh no," she whispered. "They're here." Marcus didn't move. The child looked up at the drones, frightened, its glow dimming. Marcus instinctively stepped in front of it, shielding the small body with his own. "Don't you hurt this child," he shouted. His voice carried raw authority, the kind that came from years of command, not defiance. The loudspeaker crackled again, metallic and cold. "Unidentified being detected. Step away, citizen." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Not gonna happen." Aisha whispered. "Marcus, they'll shoot." He glanced back at her, eyes steady. "Not while I'm standing here." The air thickened with tension. The drones circled lower, scanning, calculating. The hum from the alien ship above shifted pitch, now louder, protective, almost angry. Then the child moved. It stepped around Marcus and faced the machines, tiny arms outstretched. Its glow intensified, pulsing like a heartbeat. The red lights on the drones flickered, sputtered, then dimmed completely. Silence fell. Aisha's voice trembled. It stopped them." Marcus exhaled slowly, his hand still hovering protectively behind the child. "No," he said quietly. "It reminded them what mercy looks like." He looked up toward the hovering ship, its vast shadow spilling over Boulevard Avenue. "If you came back for me," he murmured, "then I guess I owe you a conversation." The beam of light brightened again, swallowing the noise of the drones, the whispers of the crowd, even the hum of the city. Something beyond understanding waited inside that light, and it wanted Marcus to step forward. The beam's brilliance dimmed to a soft glow, and the air grew calm again, heavy with the scent of ozone and dust. Marcus stood with the alien child still by his side, both bathed in light that felt more like warmth than energy. The drones hovered motionless above them, their red sensors flickering uncertainly. The child's glow pulsed gently, steady and alive, as if its very heartbeat had tamed the machines. Then the deep rumble of engines broke the quiet. 3 armored transports rolled down Boulevard Avenue, their tires grinding against broken pavement. Federation soldiers stepped out, sleek grey armor catching the strange light. At their front walked a tall woman with sharp eyes and a jaw set like iron. Her voice cut through the morning air. "Sergeant Marcus Ellison," she called. "Step away from the entity immediately." Marcus's stomach clenched. He hadn't heard his rank spoken aloud in years. "Who's asking?" he called back. "Captain Reyes, Earth Federation Security Division," she replied, her tone clipped. "You're interfering with an interspecies contact protocol. Move aside." Marcus didn't budge. "This kid isn't a threat." Reyes's gaze flicked to the child, then back to him. "You don't know that. We can't risk contamination or breach. Let my team handle it." He laughed softly, a sound without humor. "Handle it? Like y'all handled the refugees on Vega Colony? Or the miners on Sirius 12? I remember your handling." A muscle in her jaw twitched. "This is not a debate, Sergeant. Civilians are to be removed from the area." "This civilian," Marcus said, stepping closer to the child, "isn't going anywhere." Aisha, still filming from behind a tree, whispered, "Marcus, please, don't push them." He didn't answer. His focus stayed on Reyes, his voice steady but low. "You pull a weapon and the whole world will see it. That's a child, Captain. Don't forget that." Reyes hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. She raised a hand, signaling her squad to hold position. "What does it want with you, Ellison?" Before he could reply, the air shimmered again. A new sound filled the street, low, harmonic, almost like a human choir humming in unison. The alien child turned toward the ship above, its body glowing brighter. Then a voice spoke, not from any speaker, not from the child, but everywhere at once. "Marcus Ellison," it said, calm and resonant, "you are requested aboard our vessel." The soldiers tensed. Aisha's camera caught the moment perfectly, the light thickening, curling upward toward the massive shape in the sky. Reyes barked, "Negative!" "No human will board that craft without clearance." The voice ignored her. "For your act of universal compassion," it continued, "you are invited to speak among the Catheri." Marcus blinked. "Catheri?" he murmured. The name felt like water on his tongue, familiar yet foreign. Aisha stepped closer, whispering, "Marcus, that's what they're called. The Catheri. The news mentioned them once, years ago." He looked down at the child, who nodded slowly, eyes shimmering with trust. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. The child responded with a soft hum that vibrated in his bones. Marcus sighed, glancing toward Reyes. "You can shoot me if you want," he said, "but I'm going to hear what they have to say." Reyes clenched her fists. "You're walking into something we don't understand." "Story of my life," he replied. The beam of light widened slightly, its core swirling with faint images, stars, shapes, fragments of what looked like distant worlds. Marcus felt his chest tighten, memories of war colliding with an old promise he'd made to his late wife. "If you ever get the chance to build instead of destroy, take it." He looked back at Aisha, whose eyes were wet with fear and awe. "If kindness brought them here," he said softly, "maybe it's worth hearing what they came for." Aisha's voice trembled. "Just come back, Marcus." He nodded once. "I'll try." Then he stepped forward. The light swallowed him whole, sound, air, and gravity vanishing all at once. Aisha gasped, shielding her eyes. The child followed, its glow fading upward until both were gone. Above Boulevard Avenue, the Starship shimmered brighter, as if acknowledging his choice. The soldiers stood frozen. Reyes lowered her weapon, staring at the empty space where Marcus had stood. "God help us," she whispered. And then, with a pulse of silent radiance, the beam retracted into the sky. For a moment, Marcus thought he was dead. The light had consumed him whole, and now there was nothing. No air, no gravity, no sound. Then, slowly, sensation returned. The air around him felt warm, almost humid, like summer rain. He opened his eyes. He stood inside what could only be the heart of the alien vessel. The walls pulsed faintly with living light, shifting in rhythm like a slow heartbeat. The colors moved, deep golds, soft blues, and flickers of violet, blending into one another like brushstrokes in motion. The air carried a faint hum, not mechanical but melodic, as if the ship itself was alive and singing under its breath. Marcus took a cautious step forward. The ground was firm but smooth, neither metal nor stone, something in between. "Lord," he whispered, "where have you brought me?" A small voice answered from behind him. "Home." He turned. The alien child stood there, glowing softly, eyes wide and calm now. It took his hand without hesitation. Marcus felt the pulse again. Not words, not thoughts, but feeling, gratitude, warmth, trust. He knelt slightly, meeting the child's gaze. "You led me here," he said quietly. "Why me?" Before the child could respond, the walls brightened, and a figure approached from the far side of the chamber. It wasn't human, tall, graceful, its form translucent and fluid, like living glass shaped into motion. Light flowed within its body as veins of color. When it spoke, its voice harmonized with the walls. "You are Marcus Ellison," it said, "human of the Federation. The one who gave sustenance to a child of the Catheri." Marcus's throat tightened. "I didn't know what it was," he said. "Just a kid who was hungry." "That act," the being replied, "was not ignorance. It was compassion, a gift rare in the cold space between worlds." He exhaled slowly. "You could have just said thank you." The being's light shimmered, a pulse that felt like laughter, though no sound came. "We do not trade words for meaning. We share it." As it spoke, faint vibrations rippled through the floor. Shapes appeared around Marcus. Transparent orbs filled with images, fragments of memory. He saw himself offering the sandwich, saw the child's trembling hands, saw the quiet dignity of a man who had nothing left to prove. He felt exposed. "You can see inside me?" "We can feel what you have lived," the being said gently. "The grief you carry, the war that marked you, the promise you once made." Marcus's chest ached. He remembered his wife, Alana, the last time he'd seen her before deployment. Her voice had been soft when she said, "Feed souls before you feed armies, Marcus." He swallowed hard. "You're telling me this because—" "What? You want me to represent humanity now?" The being stepped closer, the air shimmering with its light. "We seek understanding. Your species fights often, but still chooses to feed the lost. You offered food to one who did not belong without question. That act carries weight beyond your knowing." Marcus shook his head. "I'm no diplomat. I'm just trying to live right." "Then live right with us," the being said. "Learn, teach, bridge what divides." Before he could respond, a faint tremor ran through the chamber. The child looked up nervously. The lights dimmed for an instant, then steadied again. The tall being turned its gaze toward the ceiling. "They are calling us to leave," it said. "Your world fears what it does not yet understand." Marcus's heart thudded. "The Federation?" The being didn't answer, but the silence confirmed it. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "That sounds like them, all right." The child squeezed his hand tighter. Marcus looked down, and for the first time in years, he felt something break loose inside him. Not pain, not guilt, but purpose. He looked back at the glowing walls, at the living light that seemed to breathe around him. "If you're brought me here to listen," he said quietly, "then I'm listening." The being nodded slowly. "Then you're already speaking." The colors around them deepened, swelling into a golden glow that pulsed in rhythm with Marcus's heartbeat. Somewhere deep inside the ship, the same melody he'd heard outside began to rise, soft, gospel-like, rich with harmony. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. It was home. The melody faded, replaced by a deep vibration running through the walls, the kind Marcus recognized immediately. It was the low mechanical hum of engines locking into defensive formation. His soldier's instincts told him before the alien even spoke. "They've surrounded us," the Catheri emissary said softly. Marcus clenched his fists. "The Federation." "Yes," the being replied. They have brought weapons to your home sky. He felt his stomach twist. The old fear crept in, that mix of anger and disappointment that always came when humanity chose fear over reason. They don't even know what this is, he muttered. They just see something different and get ready to shoot it. The emissary's light dimmed. It is their way? He sighed. Too often. The child tugged at his sleeve, a soft hum trembling from its chest. Through that faint vibration, Marcus felt the alien's fear, a child's simple question echoing through its pulse. Will they hurt us? He knelt beside it, voice steady. Not if I can help it. The being turned toward him. We can protect ourselves. But if we defend, your kind will answer with war. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Then we need another option. Before the emissary could respond, a section of the wall brightened into a holographic projection. Outside, Marcus saw the Federation fleet hovering above the clouds, a dozen warships encircling the Cathari vessel. He recognized the sleek triangles of the Vanguard-class destroyers, their cannons charged and glowing red. At their center, a smaller ship broadcast a wide-range transmission. Captain Reyes's voice thundered through the chamber, filtered and cold. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Reyes of the Earth Federation. You are violating restricted airspace. Power down your systems and release Sergeant Marcus Ellison immediately, or we will engage. Marcus exhaled sharply. She's really going to do it. The emissary studied him. This Reyes commands your armies? She commands fear, Marcus said bitterly. That's close enough. The hologram shifted. A new voice came through, Aisha's. Her transmission was faint, but her tone cut through the static. Marcus, if you can hear this, they're preparing to strike. People are panicking. I'm trying to calm them, but... The signal cracked, fading in and out. They say the aliens took you. You need to talk to them. Marcus turned to the emissary. Can you connect me to her? We can, the being replied, but only if you are ready to speak for your kind. He hesitated. The idea of speaking for humanity felt like standing in front of a firing squad, but Aisha's voice lingered in his mind, the fear in it unmistakable. He nodded. Do it. The walls brightened again, forming a ring of golden light. A new image flickered to life, Aisha standing on Boulevard Avenue, surrounded by flashing lights and hovering drones. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Marcus! You're alive. I'm fine, he said quickly. Listen, you have to tell them not to fire. These people aren't hostile. Aisha shook her head. They won't listen to me. You need to talk to Reyes yourself. Patch her through, Marcus said to the emissary. The air rippled and Captain Reyes's face appeared beside Aisha's projection. Her jaw was tight, eyes sharp. Sergeant Ellison, you have no authority to negotiate. I didn't ask for it, Marcus said, but I've got something you don't... Perspective. Stand down, she ordered. We'll handle this diplomatically once you're secured. Marcus's voice hardened. Diplomacy doesn't start with guns pointed at the sky. You want peace? Then lower your weapons. Reyes's expression flickered, just for a second. You're letting emotion cloud judgment. Maybe, Marcus said quietly, but that's what makes us human. The emissary's light pulsed approvingly, echoing his words through the ship. For a brief moment, the entire chamber vibrated in a soft harmony that felt like hope. Reyes hesitated, her voice faltering. Ellison, this is bigger than you realize. Then come see for yourself, he said. Or we'll both lose what could have been the first real peace humanity ever earned. Static filled the air. Outside, the warships held their position, silent, waiting. Aisha's voice broke through, small but firm. Marcus, keep talking. People are watching now. They're starting to believe you. He nodded slightly, eyes never leaving the holographic sky. Then let's give them a reason to. The air inside the ship grew heavy, vibrating with a pulse that wasn't sound, but emotion. Marcus could feel it. Tension, expectation, the fragile thread of peace about to snap. Outside, through the shimmering wall of light, the Federation fleet hovered like vultures, waiting for a reason to strike. The Cathari emissary turned toward him, its form glowing with quiet urgency. They do not understand your voice, it said. They understand only power. Marcus stared back at the holographic projection of Captain Reyes. Then we'll show them another kind. Reyes crossed her arms, her expression unmoving. You have 1 minute to comply, Sergeant. We're done waiting. The alien child clung to Marcus's arm, trembling. Through its touch he felt confusion, fear, and something deeper, hope that he would somehow make this right. Marcus glanced down, then straightened his back. You hear me, Reyes? Her tone hardened. This isn't the time for speeches. Maybe it is, he said quietly. Because if you shoot that ship out of the sky, you'll kill more than aliens. You'll kill the best part of what we are. Reyes's silence was sharp as a blade. Marcus took a deep breath and turned toward the emissary. Can you broadcast my voice? The being nodded once. To all who are listening. The light around him intensified, humming like an old church organ finding its key. Marcus squared his shoulders. He'd spoken before troops, before politicians, before dying men. But this felt different. He wasn't speaking for anyone. He was speaking to everyone. My name's Marcus Ellison, he began, his voice echoing through the ship and across open airwaves. I'm just a man from East Atlanta. I fought for the Federation. I bled for it. And I watched good people die for flags and orders that never fed a hungry soul. He paused, letting the words settle. Last night I gave my lunch to a lost child, not a soldier, not a threat, just someone who needed kindness. That's all it took for them to come here, not to conquer, not to steal, but to thank us. The ship's hum deepened, harmonizing with his voice. The Cathari emissary's light pulsed, amplifying the broadcast across both human and alien frequencies. You want to know who we are? Marcus continued. We're the species that sings when it hurts. We dance in the ashes and laugh through the struggle. We feed strangers. We forgive fools. And we keep getting up no matter how many times the world knocks us down. A murmur rippled through the fleet's comm channels. On the streets below, people listening on handheld screens and radios stopped what they were doing. Aisha's live stream carried his voice to millions. Reyes whispered into her mic, "Cut the signal." A technician shook his head. Can't, ma'am, it's everywhere. Marcus pressed on. Humanity ain't perfect. We fight too much. We forget too quick. But we've got something worth saving. Compassion. That's our power. You think strength comes from fear? It doesn't. It comes from care. From love that don't quit. The alien child looked up at him, eyes glimmering, the reflection of his words flickering across its translucent skin. Marcus raised his voice. If you want to show these visitors who we are, then put down your guns, feed them. Listen, because the future don't start with another war. It starts with a meal shared on a cracked Atlanta sidewalk. Reyes's image wavered, her face unreadable. For a long moment there was nothing but silence. Then the emissary stepped forward, bowing its luminous head. Your words and they carry rhythm, it said softly, like the first note of understanding. Outside, the Federation ships held still. No missiles, no fire, only stillness. Marcus exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. Guess that's one way to introduce ourselves. The emissary regarded him with a light that almost resembled a smile. Perhaps your people are not as lost as they fear. But deep within Marcus's chest, unease lingered. He knew the moment of peace was fragile, held together by faith alone, and faith, in his experience, was the hardest thing to defend. For a long moment, silence hung over Earth's skies. Then the comms erupted with voices, angry, fearful, fractured. Federation officers debated protocols. Politicians demanded containment. Civilians flooded networks with messages of hope and panic. Marcus's speech had spread beyond control, and that terrified the people who thrived on control. Inside the Cathari ship, the light dimmed to a softer hue. The emissary's glow flickered like a candle caught in wind. Your words reach far, it said. But their leaders prepare to answer not with hearts, but with weapons. Marcus rubbed his temple, the ache of exhaustion pressing behind his eyes. That's what they always do when they can't understand something. They talk about safety, but what they mean is fear. Through the shimmering wall he could see the Federation fleet tightening formation. The flagship's engines blazed like molten gold. A single wrong move, One misread gesture, and humanity's first real chance at peace would die before it began. The child moved closer, small hand gripping Marcus's coat. He looked down at it, delicate, trembling, and thought of the starving kids he'd met during the war. "We're not so different," he murmured. "We all just want to be seen." Aisha's voice broke through the ship's comm, faint but clear. "Marcus, I don't know how you're doing it, but people are listening. The broadcast is global now. Cities from Lagos to Detroit are streaming it live. Some are praying, some are marching, some are singing your name." Marcus's throat tightened. "I didn't want that," he said. "Maybe not," Aisha replied. "But they needed someone to speak for them. You did." The emissary turned toward him. "The others among your kind demand your surrender. They call you traitor." Marcus gave a short, bitter laugh. Wouldn't be the first time someone said that about a man who tried to stop a fight. Reyes's image flickered into view, projected by the ship's systems. Her face was pale with tension. "Ellison," she said, "you've set off chaos. Stand down before this gets worse." He met her gaze calmly. "It's already worse, Captain. People are tired of fear being the only language spoken in power. They're ready for something different." Her jaw tightened. "And what exactly are you offering them? Fairy tales about compassion? That won't hold a defense line." Marcus stepped forward. "Maybe not. But it builds something stronger. Trust. You know what happens when people trust each other, Reyes. They stop needing lines at all." Static buzzed between them, filled with unspoken truth. For a moment she said nothing. Then her tone softened, barely audible. "You think you can fix what centuries of fear built?" He shook his head. "No. But maybe I can start cracking it." Behind her, one of her officers shouted an alert. "Energy surge from the alien vessel." Reyes turned sharply, but the emissary spoke before she could react. "We are amplifying his message. Humanity must decide its own truth." The ship began to hum again, not aggressively but harmonically, a resonance that rippled through the air. The sound reached human frequencies, then broadcast outward in waves. Marcus's words, his tone, even his heartbeat became part of that vibration, spreading across frequencies the Federation couldn't jam. From orbit to ground level, people heard his voice intertwined with the ship's music. If you ever gave a piece of bread to someone who was hungry, you've already changed the universe. In churches, mosques, and street corners, people stopped and listened. Some cried. Others simply closed their eyes and felt something they hadn't in years: hope without orders. Reyes watched the readings on her console spike. "He's reaching them," she whispered. Her second-in-command frowned. "Orders, Ma'am?" She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "Hold fire." Inside the ship, Marcus didn't know she'd said it, but he felt the tension in the air ease. He looked to the emissary. "So what happens now?" The being's light dimmed to a deep amber. "Now the universe watches how you answer your own words." Outside, the Cathari ship pulsed once, a heartbeat echoing across the dawn, while the Federation fleet waited in uneasy silence, humanity caught between the memory of fear and the promise of compassion. The tension in the air began to ease, like a muscle finally unclenching after years of strain. The Cathari ship hummed in low, gentle tones that seemed to settle over the earth like a lullaby. Marcus stood quietly, every breath heavy with the awareness that something had shifted, not just outside, but inside him. The alien child stepped forward, its glow softer now, almost human in its warmth. It looked up at him, then placed its small hand on his chest. The gesture carried no words, but Marcus felt something pass between them, a memory, a sensation, a flood of emotion that left him unsteady. "What are you trying to show me?" he asked softly. The emissary's light flickered beside them. "It wishes to share what it knows, to let you see as it sees." Marcus swallowed hard. "All right," he said. "I'll try." The moment he spoke, the child pressed a small sphere into his palm, a perfect crystal of light, cool to the touch. As his fingers closed around it, a pulse of warmth spread through his arm, then into his mind. The walls of the ship blurred, replaced by visions that unfolded like living memories. He was no longer standing inside the vessel, but among the stars. He saw the Catheri homeworld, oceans that shimmered like liquid glass, cities woven from strands of light, voices that sang instead of spoke. He saw the same child, laughing among others, until smoke darkened the sky. Then came fear, human fleets, weapons flashing, confusion, retreat, silence. Marcus's heart tightened. He felt the hunger, the exile, the loneliness of a species that had wandered the void, searching not for conquest, but for a place to belong. He saw the child hiding in the ruins of an abandoned Earth outpost, hungry, afraid, until a human man handed it a sandwich under the dim streetlight of East Atlanta. Marcus gasped, the memory hitting him like a wave. The child's gratitude was raw, luminous, a feeling that stretched beyond language. When the vision faded, he found himself back inside the ship. The sphere still glowed faintly in his hand, pulsing like a heartbeat. He blinked away tears. You remember everything," he whispered. "Even that small act." The emissary inclined its luminous head. "To you, it was small. To us, it was proof that compassion still lives in the stars." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I didn't do anything special." The being's tone softened. "You offered what you had. That is always special." The child looked up at him again, eyes bright and wet with light. Its voice, fragile but clear, formed two halting words. "Thank you." Marcus froze, his breath catching in his chest. It was the first time he'd heard it speak clearly, the sound trembling but true. He smiled faintly. "You're welcome, little one." Outside, the hum of the ship deepened again, resonating with the rhythm of the sphere in his hand. The emissary extended one arm, pointing to it. "That crystal now holds a bridge between our memories and yours. It is a translation of spirit, not of words. Keep it close, for through it your people may understand what we cannot yet explain." Marcus studied the sphere, light dancing across his palm. "So this is your gift." "Yes," said the emissary, "but also your burden. What you carry is not power, it is understanding. And understanding always costs." Marcus turned the sphere slowly, watching the colors shift like northern lights trapped in glass. His chest ached, not with fear but with a strange, reverent sorrow. "You're telling me to show this to them, aren't you? To help them see?" The being nodded. "When your world looks upon this memory, they will know what it means to give without expectation. They will know why we came." Marcus looked down at the child, who now stood at ease, light, calm, and steady. "You trusted me when you didn't have to," he said softly. "Guess I better earn that?" The emissary's voice grew quieter. "Then perhaps, Marcus Ellison, you are ready for what comes next." He didn't ask what that meant. Deep down, he already knew. Every gift carries the weight of a choice. Marcus stood at the center of the ship's chamber, the glowing sphere still warm in his palm. Outside, the faint hum of the Federation fleet grew louder again, the uneasy growl of machines waiting for an excuse. The emissary's light flickered once, faintly dimmed. "Your world is restless," it said. He nodded grimly. "They think peace is weakness. They always have." A deep rumble rolled through the ship as another transmission came through. The holographic projection shimmered to life, revealing Captain Reyes once more. Her expression was drawn tight, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. "Sergeant Ellison," she said, "this has gone far enough. We can't risk a standoff any longer. Come out now." Marcus squared his shoulders. "If I step out, you'll fire on them." "I won't," she replied, though her eyes betrayed doubt. "But my superiors might. They're calling it a containment breach. They've authorized preemptive engagement." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "Preemptive engagement? That's a fancy way of saying fear wins again." Reyes's voice cracked slightly. "You don't understand the pressure we're under. Billions are watching, terrified." "I'm trying to protect what's left of order." "Order?" Marcus's tone sharpened. "You can't protect order with destruction. You protect it by doing what's right, even when it scares you." For a brief second, she said nothing. The hum of her command ship, filtered through the comms, steady but trembling. Marcus lifted the sphere, its light reflecting across his face. "You see this? This isn't a weapon. It's memory, theirs and ours. Everything they've felt since the day we met them. They're not here to invade. They're here because one of us decided to feed a stranger instead of fearing one." Reyes looked past him, eyes narrowing. "That thing gave you that?" "It's not a thing," Marcus said firmly. "It's a child, and it trusted me. If we can't honor that, we don't deserve the stars." The silence between them thickened. Then Reyes whispered, "You still believe in them, in us, after everything we've done?" Marcus met her gaze. "Belief's not the same as blindness. I've seen what we are at our worst, but I've also seen what we could be when we remember our humanity." Behind him, the emissary spoke softly. "They listened to you, Marcus Ellison, but words must walk beside action." He nodded slowly. "Then it's time to show them what standing means." Without hesitation, Marcus walked toward the ship's opening, the child following close behind. As the light parted, he stepped into the open air high above Atlanta, sky split between storm and sunrise. The Federation fleet loomed before him like an iron crown. Reyes's voice trembled through the comms. "Marcus, don't do this." He held up the glowing sphere for all to see. "You want to know what makes us human?" he shouted. "It's this, the choice to care when nobody tells us to. The courage to feed the lost instead of fear them." The Catheri ship amplified his voice, carrying it across every open channel. "You can call me a fool, you can call me a traitor, but if kindness makes me those things, then I'll wear it proud." The child beside him hummed, light flaring brighter. For a heartbeat, the entire sky shimmered with golden resonance, a sound that seemed to calm the static of the Federation's scanners. On the flagship, Reyes watched in silence. Her officers waited for orders. "Ma'am?" one asked quietly. She stared at Marcus, standing unarmed before her fleet, an alien child at his side. Then slowly she lowered her hand. "Hold fire," she said. Marcus exhaled shakily, his voice breaking but strong. "You can build walls or bridges, Reyes. Today I'm choosing a bridge." She didn't reply. But when the Catheri ship's hum deepened again, not one weapon fired. Marcus turned to the emissary. "So what now?" The being's glow softened. "Now your people begin to hear." He looked down at the sphere, its light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. For the first time in decades, he felt unafraid, not because danger had passed, but because he finally understood why he was still standing. The sky over Atlanta glowed with a pale, trembling light. The Catheri vessel hovered silently, its reflection shimmering in every window from downtown to the suburbs. Marcus stood before it, the glowing sphere in his hand while the world below held its breath. The emissary's voice resonated through the air. "They are listening now." Marcus's pulse thudded in his ears. He looked toward the distant horizon, where millions of eyes, human and alien alike, waited for what he would say next. He wasn't a leader, not a politician. Just a man who had once handed his lunch to a hungry child, but somehow that small act had brought the universe to his doorstep. The sphere brightened, casting faint patterns of light around him. A signal flashed. The Catheri's translation systems linking to global networks. Aisha's voice came through his earpiece. "Marcus, you're live everywhere." News channels, feeds, even the Federation's own broadcast line. They can't shut it off this time. He took a deep breath. "Then let's make it count." He lifted the sphere and spoke, his voice carried by the ship, translated into every language on Earth. "To anyone who's hearing this, this isn't about aliens or governments, this is about us. About what we choose to be when fear tells us to hide." On screens across the world his image appeared, an older black man with a soldier's stance and a weary heart, standing beneath an alien light. His tone was steady, but raw. "When I gave my lunch to that child, I didn't think about who they were or where they came from. I just saw someone who needed help. And that moment, that simple choice, changed everything. Maybe that's what humanity is supposed to be, a people who help first and ask questions later." He paused, his throat tight. I've been a soldier. I've seen what happens when we forget that truth. We build walls, drop bombs, call it safety. All. But safety without compassion is just another kind of war. The sphere pulsed, releasing faint waves of light that carried his words into the Catheri frequencies. The emissary translated his emotions into sound, a low, melodic hum that intertwined with his voice. Across continents, people stopped what they were doing. Traffic slowed. Children pointed at the skies. In every neighborhood I've ever lived, Marcus continued, I've seen people give even when they had nothing. I've seen mothers share food with strangers, fathers fix broken bikes for kids they don't know, and communities rebuild after the world forgot them. That's what makes us human. Not power, not pride, heart. Reyes's image flickered on a nearby monitor, watching in silence from her command deck. Her officers stared, transfixed. She whispered, almost to herself, he's not preaching, he's remembering. Marcus's voice grew quieter but stronger, filled with conviction. If you ever gave your lunch to someone in need, this story belongs to you too. Because that's how we change the universe, one small act of care at a time. Aisha's voice came through again, choked with emotion. Marcus, the world's listening. They're responding. People are lighting candles, singing, sending messages of peace, hashtags everywhere. Feed the stars. Marcus smiled faintly. Then maybe we're learning. He turned toward the emissary. If you wanted to understand humanity, well, this is us. Messy, stubborn, loud, but when we remember who we are, we shine brighter than any weapon you've ever seen. The emissary's light pulsed softly. Then your people are worth knowing. For a long moment the world was still. The Federation ships hovered motionless, their weapons cooling. Below, cities erupted not in panic but in song. Gospel choirs, street musicians, and voices rising from open windows. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. Guess they're singing again, he murmured. The emissary looked to him. What does that mean? It means, Marcus said, smiling through tears, we might just be all right. The world changed overnight. Marcus's broadcast had gone viral beyond imagination. Screens, streets, and billboards played his words in endless loops. In Atlanta, murals of him and the Catheri child appeared within hours, painted by local artists in bright colors and bold faith. People gathered on corners, singing hymns that blended with the soft alien harmonies still echoing from the sky. But for Marcus, the noise of celebration felt distant. He sat on a park bench at dawn, hands folded around a cup of coffee gone cold. His reflection in the cup looked older than he remembered. Lines deepened, eyes shadowed. Aisha walked up quietly, her steps crunching on gravel. You're hiding, she said. Just thinking, Marcus replied. The world doesn't seem to know what to do with peace. She smiled faintly. You gave them something they didn't know they could believe in. He shook his head. I didn't give them anything they didn't already have. They just forgot it was still there. Aisha sat beside him. Federation leaders are fighting over how to respond. Some want to negotiate, some are furious, and some want you in D.C. Yesterday, Marcus groaned. Yeah, I heard. They want to parade me in front of cameras, shake my hand, call it unity, but they don't want to learn a damn thing. Aisha's tone softened. You could help guide them. People listen to you now. He looked out over the quiet street, the morning light glinting off the Catheri vessel hovering faintly in the clouds. Power's a dangerous drug, Aisha. I've seen it twist men who started with good hearts. I ain't about to become one of them. She studied him for a long moment. So what will you do? Same thing I've always done, he said. Feed whoever's hungry. Talk to whoever listens. The wind stirred the leaves, carrying the faint sound of alien harmonies drifting from city loudspeakers, a new tradition born overnight. The Catheri had shared their music freely, blending it with Earth's own rhythms. Choirs across the world sang alongside alien tones, creating something neither species could have made alone. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the sound fill him. You hear that? Aisha smiled. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a start, he said. But peace ain't free. It's work. Every day, every choice. People think it's just silence after the fighting stops, but it's more like gardening. You stop tending it, weeds come back. She nodded, thoughtful. You're right. And you've already planted a lot. Marcus chuckled. Guess we'll see if it grows. For a while they sat in silence. A group of children ran past, laughing, their laughter mixing with the alien music. One of them carried a small Catheri toy, a gift from the visiting delegation that had begun settling in neutral zones around the world. Aisha looked at him. You ever think your wife would have believed all this? Marcus smiled softly. Alana always said love was bigger than planets. Guess she was right. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the small, glowing sphere. The light pulsed slowly, matching his heartbeat. Sometimes I wonder why they chose me. Why not someone younger, smarter, less tired? Aisha rested a hand on his arm. Because they saw what we see. A man who gives, even when he's got nothing left. He didn't answer right away. His gaze followed the sunrise painting gold across the skyline. Maybe, he said finally. Or maybe they just saw a hungry man sharing his meal with another. The air grew still again, peaceful but heavy. Marcus could feel the old ache of the past, the war, the noise, the loss, and yet beneath it, something quiet had taken root. A strange kind of healing that didn't erase the scars, but made them worth carrying. Aisha stood, brushing her coat. They're asking for a public meeting tonight. The Catheri want you there. Marcus looked at the sky and sighed. Then I guess peace still needs a voice, she smiled. And you're still that voice. Marcus rose slowly, his knees stiff, but his heart steady. Yeah, he said, glancing at the horizon. But first, I'm going to get a fresh cup of coffee. Saving the world's hard on the caffeine supply. Aisha laughed, the sound bright and human against the alien hum in the air. For the first time in years, Marcus laughed with her. Months passed, and the world slowly learned to breathe again. The Catheri ship no longer hovered as a visitor, but remained as a bridge, a permanent orbiting presence above Earth. Trade of knowledge replaced talk of war. In schools, children learned the Catheri alphabet beside English and Swahili, and choirs across Atlanta sang new songs stitched from both human gospel and alien resonance. Marcus Ellison moved quietly through this new world, choosing the background instead of the spotlight. Every morning he walked to the East Atlanta Community Center, the same place he'd once helped repair after the war. Now it stood reborn as the Ellison Cultural Exchange, where humans and Catheri worked side by side, teaching art, language, and compassion. Inside, kids' laughter echoed through the halls, human children chasing their Catheri classmates, light trails following their movements like watercolor strokes in the air. Marcus stood in the doorway, smiling faintly. He didn't say much, just watched, his heart filled with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd planted seeds and was finally seeing them grow. Aisha approached with a tablet under her arm. You know they're naming you in the new peace accords, right? She said. The Federation wants to make it official. The Ellison Principle, acts of compassion as diplomatic initiatives. Marcus chuckled. Sounds like something a lawyer cooked up. Probably, Aisha said, laughing. But it means something, Marcus. Your story's changing how governments talk about peace. He shook his head. It ain't my story. It's ours, yours, that kid's, everyone who refused to turn away. She smiled, leaning on the railing beside him. You're still allergic to credit. Never sat right with me, he said. The folks who really change the world rarely get statues. They just keep doing the work. A Catheri child walked up, the same one from that long-ago night on Boulevard Avenue, now taller, its glow calmer, voice steadier. Marcus, it said, its tone melodic and sure. We teach today. Come? He looked down at the young being, pride tugging at the corner of his mouth. Yeah, he said softly. Let's teach. In the classroom, children sat cross-legged in a circle, while the Catheri child hummed a low rhythmic tone. Marcus clapped along, setting a beat that turned into a song, half gospel, half alien harmony. The walls vibrated with laughter and melody. a sound unlike anything Earth had ever heard before. When the lesson ended, a boy raised his hand. "Mister." "Marcus, is it true you used to be a soldier?" Marcus paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I was." "Were you scared?" the boy asked. He smiled faintly. "Every day. But fear's not the enemy. Forgetting why you're afraid is. I fought because I thought I had to. Now I teach so maybe you won't have to." The boy nodded, thinking deeply. The Cathari child leaned forward and said, "Marcus protects with words now." Marcus looked at it, emotion catching in his throat. "Yeah," he said softly. "Guess I do." After class, Aisha joined him outside, watching the sunset paint the horizon in crimson and violet. "The Federation's offering you a seat on the new council," she said. "Global representative for interspecies ethics." Marcus laughed quietly. "You mean another chair in a room full of people who love to talk more than listen?" "It's not just talk anymore," she said. "They're actually building something. You started it." He shook his head. "Then let them build it. I'll stay right here, helping these kids remember what started it." Aisha studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "You really believe the world's ready for peace?" Marcus looked toward the glowing sky, where the Cathari ship hung steady, a symbol of what used to be impossible. "Maybe not ready," he said, "but willing." And that's enough. The wind carried faint traces of music from the community center, a mix of voices, human and alien, rising together in harmony. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. It was the same feeling he'd known that first night, quiet, humble, and alive. For the first time in decades, he didn't feel like a soldier remembering the past. He felt like a man who had helped build a future. The announcement came quietly, without the fanfare Marcus expected. One morning, the Cathari emissary arrived at the community center, its glow softer than usual, almost solemn. The children sensed it first. Their laughter faded, replaced by whispers and curious glances. Marcus watched from the doorway, his heart sinking even before the emissary spoke. "It is time," the being said, voice low and melodic. "Our council has called us home. We must return to the stars." Marcus nodded slowly, though his chest tightened. "I figured it couldn't last forever." The Cathari child approached him, light flickering uncertainly. "You come too?" it asked in its halting English. Marcus crouched down, resting a hand on the child's shoulder. "Nah, little one. My place is here. Yours is out there. That's how bridges work. One side always stays behind." The child's glow dimmed. "We will miss your light." He smiled faintly. "You'll carry it with you. That's the whole point of sharing it." Word spread quickly. Within hours, people gathered along Boulevard Avenue to watch the Cathari prepare their ship for departure. News crews arrived, but for once, there were no political speeches, no grand displays. Just silence, reverent, heavy, and human. Aisha stood beside Marcus, arms folded against the cool wind. "They're naming one of their ships after you," she said quietly. "The Ellison Light. They say it'll carry the stories of compassion they've learned here." He let out a low whistle. "Didn't think I'd ever see my name on anything that could fly." She smiled softly. "You earned it." He shook his head. "I just gave a kid some food." "Yeah," she said, "and look what it started." The emissary turned toward him. "You changed the song between our worlds. When our children speak of humans, they will begin with your name." Marcus looked away, overwhelmed. "Don't do that, I ain't no saint." The being tilted its head. "Perhaps not, but saints are born from the echoes of simple kindness." He couldn't find words for that. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the glowing sphere, its light now dimmed to a soft, steady pulse. "Guess this is yours again," he said, offering it. The emissary shook its head. "It belongs to both worlds now. Keep it. As long as it shines, our connection endures." He looked down at it, the memory of that first night rushing back, the quiet street, the trembling child, the hum in the dark. "Then I'll keep it safe." As twilight deepened, the Cathari gathered near the ship. The sky pulsed with color, soft blues and golds folding together like woven silk. The crowd fell silent. Marcus felt Aisha slip her arm through his. "You all right?" she asked. He nodded slowly. I will be. The child stepped forward one last time. Goodbye, Marcus. He knelt again, meeting its luminous eyes. Not goodbye. Just see you later. That's how we say it here. The child tilted its head. See ya later, Marcus grinned. That's it. The emissary bowed its head in a gesture that felt like prayer. Your heart carried peace farther than our ships could ever travel. May your people follow its path. As the Cathari boarded, the ship's hum rose into a haunting harmony, half machine, half soul. The ground vibrated softly as light enveloped the vessel, lifting it slowly toward the stars. The crowd broke into song, an old gospel melody rising into the night, its words simple and pure. We are one. We are one. Aisha whispered, They're really leaving. Yeah, Marcus said quietly, but they'll be back. Love's like that, as it never stays gone. The light grew smaller, then vanished completely into the dark sky. Marcus stood there for a long time, eyes fixed on the stars. He felt no emptiness, only calm, a deep, grounding peace. Aisha turned to him. You think they'll remember us? He smiled softly. If I know them right, they'll remember every note. The stars above were clearer that night. The air in East Atlanta felt still, as though the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something more, something beyond the horizon. Marcus stood alone on his porch, the quiet hum of the city's streets drifting through the cool evening air. The Cathari ship was gone, but their presence lingered like a dream too vivid to fade. Aisha had gone home after the farewell, and the neighborhood was quiet, save for the occasional sound of children playing, their laughter echoing in the distance. Marcus looked up at the sky, watching as the first stars began to pierce through the darkening sky. He could still hear the song they had sung, the voices of human and Cathari blending together in a harmonious thread that ran deeper than words. He wasn't sure how long he stood there before Aisha reappeared, walking down the street with a cup of coffee in hand. She had the same peaceful look on her face that she always did after a long day of work, but there was something different in her eyes, a lightness, a quiet understanding that hadn't been there before. They made it back, didn't they? She said, joining him on the porch. Yeah, Marcus said softly. They did. Aisha sipped her coffee. And they'll come back again, won't they? Marcus nodded, looking up again. They will. Love's a long journey, Aisha, but they know the way now. They stood there for a long time, the silence between them comfortable, almost sacred. The world had changed, but it wasn't about the grand gestures, the speeches, or the treaties. It was about the small, quiet things, the meals shared, the hands extended, the hearts that chose to trust instead of fear. Finally, Aisha broke the silence. Do you think the world will change, Marcus? Not overnight, he said, his voice steady. But maybe, over time, the pieces will start to fit. It won't be easy. People will stumble. They'll fall back into old habits. But, he paused, feeling the weight of his words, but if we remember what we learned, we'll be okay. Aisha smiled softly. You really think we can do it? Keep the peace, I mean. I think we can, Marcus said, turning toward her. If we keep feeding each other, literally and figuratively. Aisha looked out at the darkened horizon. It's funny. You changed everything just by giving that child your lunch, all the speeches, all the plans, and it was one small act that made the difference. Marcus chuckled. Yeah, well, I didn't know that's how it would go, but I guess that's how it works. Small acts can change the universe. They stood together, watching the last traces of the Cathari ship's light fade into the distance. It was gone, but its message, the lesson of kindness, of compassion, of listening, lingered. Aisha reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She held it out to Marcus, showing him the trending hashtags, Feed the Stars, Compassion First, Humanity is Alive. They're still talking about you, she said, smiling, about all of us. They're sharing what we did. Marcus smiled, a soft, humble smile. I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did, she said, her voice firm but warm. You made them see that kindness is stronger than fear. You reminded us of who we are when we forget. For a moment, Marcus said nothing. Then, quietly, he spoke. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to show up, to keep choosing love over fear, day after day. Aisha nodded. And that's how we'll make it work. As they stood there, the first soft notes of a new song floated down the street, a familiar melody, but with an unfamiliar twist. It was a song the Cathari had taught them, a blending of rhythms and voices that created something beautiful and new. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him. This is the beginning, Aisha, not the end. We'll keep walking together no matter what comes next. She nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars. Yeah, together. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt at peace. The weight of his past didn't disappear, but it felt lighter somehow, as though the future he had once feared was now something to embrace. The world had changed, and so had he. In the distance, the first true notes of a new world rang out. It was small, soft, but it was there, humanity, with all its flaws and greatness, ready to walk into the stars.